news. Both returned to GSD executive. Court of Appeal says convicted fraudster Gillian Balvang has never accepted responsibility for her actions. And a third complainant in Clayton Booster sexual abuse trial begins giving evidence. Good evening. The GFA has confirmed there will be no reduction to the requirements for homegrown players in league games. Current rules require that 3 Gibraltar-eligible players be on the pitch at all times, meaning players who meet any of the criteria to represent the national team. Following continued speculation that some clubs were planning to push for the reduction or removal of this rule, the Football Association has made its position clear. Secretary-General Ivan Roba says it's a fundamental principle of the GFA to have these players on the pitch every week. He spoke with Jose Mari Ruiz during Gibraltar's game against the Cayman Islands.
I can say that we're not going to reduce the homegrown player, which we now call the Gibraltar eligible player, which is a tweak that we did last year as well, because what we want is as many players eligible to play for Gibraltar as possible in our domestic league. And if a request were to come through officially, then we would sit on the table and talk to them about why they're asking for a further request. But we're not going to entertain any reductions because we see it as a fundamental principle to have these players on the pitch playing every week.
So right now I understand there's 2 proposals on the table between the clubs, one being for it to go down to 1 this season, then 0 the following, and another one which is a little bit more gradual from 2 to 1 to 0. But regardless, you're not going to be hearing any of that.
No, because look, I think what's important for everyone to know is that amending any rule as fundamental as that cannot be something that's done by a vote by the clubs. I mean, you know, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be discussed and brought to the table. Amending this rule is not a simple regulation change. There are a lot of factors that need to be taken into account. There are valid requests and there are valid concerns from the clubs, which of course we'll take into account and we'll talk to them like we have been doing. So the new approach has been that we are now talking to our clubs about all our competitions. We're bringing back a new reserve league. We're talking about our solidarity funding. We're talking about everything and consulting the clubs and the leagues. So whatever happens, the consultation needs to be to all the stakeholders and not just something that's done on a vote by the clubs.
The GSD has unveiled the executive team that will lead the party into the next general election, following last week's annual general meeting. The leader of the opposition has described this as a refreshed executive. On Gibraltar Today, joined by Daniel Feetham, who's been granted life membership of the party executive, Keith Asobardi told Kellyanne Borge Gibraltar is ready for change.
What people want is a real change on the policies that they are seeing, that they have endured for the last 15 years and that they are railing against. That is disappointing to them, either on housing, in health and in education, or in the whole issue of waste, abuse and corruption, the whole financial governance, democratic governance. Those things you're not going to get change on those issues by the passing of the baton from one person to another when they've had 15 years to deliver the real changes that people want. So the only way that you're going to secure change at the next election is for there to be a change of government. And that's why I set out at the annual general meeting, I set out our vision for transformative change, a set of principles that will govern the manifesto that we next launched. We already had a very long and comprehensive manifesto last time. This manifesto that will be forthcoming for the next election will be developed across the principles that I set out the other day, because that is the only way, a change of government is the only way that we're going to deliver real change to this community on the issues that concern people on the doorstep.
I have served the GSD for over 20 years in one capacity or another, and I believe that the GSD is the best party for Gibraltar. And not only do I believe that, but I believe also that it will be an overwhelming landslide at the next election on behalf of people voting for the GSD. That is not to mean that the GSD have got to take anything for granted, because that's not going to work. The GSD has got to go out, has got to connect with people in the street. That's what I spoke about earlier. And also make sure that we have the right policies that strike the balance between prudence, but also ensuring that that we have that attractive suite of policies that will make sure that people vote for the GSD at the next election.
Also voted on to the GST executive last week, former MP Elliot Phillips and Nick Cruz, formerly from the PDP. The Court of Appeal has released its full judgment explaining why it upheld Gillian Balban's fraud convictions, describing the Crown's case as powerful and rejecting claims that she was denied a fair trial. Published on the court's website, the 29-page document, written by appeal judge Sir Nigel Davis, says Balban has never accepted responsibility for the offences. Instead, the judgment finds she has continued to blame her convictions on what she sees as the bank's failure to follow its own procedures and what she views are vindictive employees. The judgment is clear, though, saying it is not her opinion which ultimately counts, it is that of the jury.
The judgment provides the first detailed insight into the appeal judge's assessment of one of Gibraltar's most significant banking fraud cases. Gillian Balban joined the Royal Bank of Scotland in Gibraltar in 1989 as a cashier and spent nearly 3 decades working her way up through the ranks. By 2008, she'd become senior branch manager in charge of retail operations, with the authority to approve transactions of up to £1 million. The judgment notes she was highly trusted by staff, with witnesses describing her as the savviest person in the bank and powerful and respected. However, the judgment concluded she'd been engaged in a sophisticated, sustained and dishonest cover-up of a deficit of up to £2 million. Balban was convicted of false accounting and fraud following a 10-week trial and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. She then appealed both conviction and sentence, but this was rejected on all grounds, with the Court of Appeal finding the trial had been fair. In fact, Judge Sir Nigel Davis said the Crown had presented a powerful case. A separate challenge regarding juror bias was also rejected after an investigation found no evidence. The prison sentence imposed by the Supreme Court was also upheld. The appeal judge said her case involved an abuse of trust, sustained and sophisticated conduct, as well as substantial financial losses.
The third complainant in the Clayton Busto sexual abuse trial has begun giving live evidence. Known in court as Mr. Y, he told the jury he had never shared the full details of the alleged abuse until his first police interview in 2023. Mr. Busto is charged with 19 counts of sexual offences against children, all of which he denies.
Mr. Y said he had looked up to the defendant as a teenager, describing him as an authority figure who was both his school teacher and scout leader. Asked how he would describe him now, the complainant called Mr. Busto manipulative and a groomer, saying that if he had children, he would not want them to be around him. The jury heard Mr. Y later confronted Mr. Busto when he was 18, after the defendant contacted him and asked to meet. He said the meeting became heated after Mr. Busto denied he had been 15 when the alleged abuse happened and told him, "You are 16, it's fine." During cross-examination, defence lawyer Chris Marsh-Finch questioned Mr. Y about notes he had made before his first police interview. He put it to the complainant that he had later added to those notes and that he could not remember dates in his first 2 interviews but could in his third. Mr. Y reminded Mr. Marsh-Finch he had told police in his first interview he would check an old laptop and emails for material that might refresh his memory. The trial continues.
Staying with the Supreme Court, the trial of a man charged with several offences, including strangulation, 2 counts of common assault and possession of a firearm, has begun. Mark Macias of Laguna State is also charged with threats to kill, destroying or damaging property, and fear or provocation of violence.
The incidents are alleged to have taken place between March and April 2025, during which the defendant is said to have assaulted the complainant's children on separate occasions. According to Crown Counsel Justin Rodriguez, when the complainant confronted the defendant at his home regarding one incident, he is said to have reportedly drawn a firearm at the man and his son. The last of the events was reportedly at Watport Road in April last year, where the men were said to have encountered one another, leading to an altercation that saw the defendant allegedly damage the other man's car. The jury heard a police interview and evidence via video link from the complainant's son. The trial continues tomorrow morning.
Police officers have seized around 1,750 litres of petrol stored inside a cave in the Upper Rock Nature Reserve. The intelligence-led operation carried out by the community policing team uncovered 70 plastic containers filled with fuel. The petrol was recovered and safely removed with assistance from other RGP officers, the Fire and Rescue Service and Customs. Investigations are ongoing. A spokesperson said the dangerous practice of storing large quantities of fuel in plastic containers is linked to supplying vessels involved in drug trafficking across the strait. The spokesperson said the seizure not only disrupted organised criminal activity, but also removed a significant safety hazard. You're watching GBC News. Still to come. Why jet skiers on small boats should be careful with whales this summer. And entries invited for the Our Gibraltar National Week competition. That's still to come. You're watching GBC News. Fin whales are once again making their annual passage through the strait, marking the start of a busy period for marine wildlife in our waters. With more sightings expected in the weeks ahead, the Department of the Environment's Stephen Waugh told Kevin Ruiz why it's important for boat and jet ski users to give these animals space.
We're very lucky, we're blessed to live where we are. Gibraltar is located in a bottleneck of a migratory corridor. Fin whales in particular are migrating through this area this time of the year. We all know they are majestic animals. They are over 25 meters in length. They can weigh over 40 tons, so they are really impressive. That is one of the main species that is migrating right now in terms of whales. We also have other species of whales that transit through the area, like sperm whales, for example, pilot whales as well, and clearly dolphins.
Now, a busy shipping lane, busy with wildlife, and this time of the year, the average Gibraltarian goes out in their boats. What's the best advice to cohabitate with the wildlife out there?
So our best advice is to clearly abide by the cetacean protocol. The protocol itself is quite simple to abide by, really. There is a 300-meter restricted access zones which surrounds these animals. It's essentially a mobile cetacean conservation area, and what we're asking the public is to keep the distance, essentially. If you do spot these animals, I mean, if you're within 60 meters, switch your engine off. If you're further away, well, don't cut across them. Keep moving in parallel with them at no more than 4 knots, and ultimately it will result in a better experience of enjoying these animals.
Now, you call it a protocol, but of course it's a bit more than that, because those seen not adhering to the protocol can face serious penalties as well.
That's correct. So there are different legal provisions that we can use under the Nature Protection Act 1991, and also under the more recent Marine Protection Regulations that were published in 2014. There are different types of fines included in those legislative instruments. Some of the more serious offences could face fines of up to level 5, so we're talking about thousands of pounds all the way up to £10,000. So there are serious sort of penalties for those individuals that do not comply with the cetacean protocol.
Now, what can we do to protect ourselves in the event we find ourselves out at sea, and perhaps unpredictable behaviour from these sea creatures?
Well, always stay calm. And in the event that you do come across an unforeseen event, like, for example, with orcas in the strait, and the advice is always to keep calm, call the port departments in the event that you do run across any difficulties, and never obviously harm the animals. The last thing you want to do is actually, endanger the animals as a result of being nervous or what have you whilst on board the vessel.
Artists, photographers and creatives are being invited to take part in this year's Our Gibraltar competition. Organised by Cultural Services, entries will be exhibited at the Fine Arts Gallery in the weeks running up to National Day.
So the Our Gibraltar competition forms part of the National Celebrations programme of events, and essentially what it aims to do is encourage artists to create some sort of piece, whether it be sculptures, photographies, prints, drawings, to depict some sort of aspects of Gibraltar. From an organising perspective, it's a very special competition because, Gibraltar Cultural Services do organise several art competitions throughout the year. However, there's just something unique about walking into a gallery space and having the walls filled up with pieces that depict your hometown and created by local artists. So we're just looking to see how creative people can get to show how special Gibraltar is.
And how important would you say it is to represent the cultural identity of Gibraltar in a competition like this?
I think it's an encouraging opportunity because it gives people the motive to sort of dig in and dive deep into what part of Gibraltar they want to capture. It's quite interesting for us because obviously, as it says in the rules, it needs to depict Gibraltar in some sort of way, and sometimes we do receive pieces and the GCS staff behind the scenes need to take a double look. Where is this in Gibraltar? And it's so interesting to see how the artists really break it down and grasp details of Gibraltar that you'd never even maybe think about twice. So it's a super interesting and special opportunity.
And what is the prize for winning this competition?
So the competition has several awards. The main prize is the Ministry of Culture Award, which is a total of £1,500. And following that, we do have several prizes that come under that. So we have the first and second prize in the arts category, and then we have a first and second prize in the photography category. So there's plenty of opportunities to win. And it's what I always say, sometimes it's not all about winning. Just seeing your work hung up in a local gallery is a moment to be proud of. So we'll encourage as many people as possible to join us this year.
And what pieces have you seen win in the previous years or in previous competitions?
We've had a bit of everything, so we usually tend to receive some very interesting sculptures. Last year we received a sculpture which was the Gibraltar National Anthem, and it was stitched onto a piece of fabric. The winning piece last year depicted the gates going into Main Street, and it was a painting. So I think it's a bit of everything, and as I said, artists are just super creative, so I don't think one exhibition has been the same. Every year we do get new things, so it's interesting to see. Gibraltar has a very diverse scene of artists, and I think there's a lot to show. However, in my opinion, the two that I see most come in would be painting and photography. However, saying that, from an organising perspective, we can never place our bets, because one year we may have a high number of photography, the next year the painters would take the hit, this year we might have a strong number of sculptures, so it's difficult to say.
A community Pokemon charity walk has raised more than £800 for the Supported Needs Action Group. The event brought together Pokemon Go players and card collectors, with the walk culminating in a card show at Europa Point.
On your marks, get set, Pokemon Go. The event was open to both dedicated Pokemon Go players or those who simply wanted to enjoy a walk. Pokemon Go's popularity peaked a few years ago, but it's still a big deal. And this weekend, trainers, gamers and many others took part in the charity walk for a great cause.
Well, this was brought up by Callum some weeks back, and we were planning of doing this trade night up in Europa Point, and we wanted to bring together something to do with charity, and we planned of doing this walk with Pokemon Go community. So choosing a charity, we chose my wife's dad's charity, which is a Snag, Eric Robotham, and the team members that work with Eric. And from there on, we've been planning this for a few weeks.
So it kind of happened by accident. Got speaking to a client who said she was a Pokemon Go ambassador, and we wanted, like Giles said, to do a trade night up at Europa Point. And one thing led to another. We chose the Supported Needs Action Group because it's close to home and close to family, and that's what we're about. And it evolved from there, no pun intended.
The walk began from Commonwealth Park, then along Roger Bay and Camp Bay before finishing at Europa Point, where there was a Pokemon Go trade event.
The thing is with Pokemon Go, it's a game that you need to walk around. It's not a game that usually you see people playing at home, playing on the iPad. So yes, it's playing on your phone, but you walk around, you get to know people that you've never met before in some occasions, and you get to enjoy what the game is about. Adding this with the trade night comes together, so we thought it was a very good idea to coincide both things one with the other.
It was Pokemon because it gets you out and it's active, and they're the only ones that have a Go on your mobile phone where you can get out and be active and all that kind of stuff. And aside from that, it ties into what we initially did in the first place, which is the Gibraltar Card Show, which brings a community of collectors, gamers, because we've got a gamer group now called the Rock Solid Vanguard as well, who's working with us. They're awesome people and they take Snag very seriously, and we're really coming together as a community and as a family, aren't we?
Exactly, yeah.
That's great.
In all, £800 was raised for the Supported Needs Action Group.
Well, it's been a busy weekend for MMA and boxers away from the Rock, and Gibraltar's women's hockey host Morocco tomorrow. At the same time, the women's national football squad bring an end to their FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Lots of international sports to report on. Here's Josemari Ruiz with the latest.
Gibraltar made it 2-2 with a 4-1 win over Cayman Islands, adding to a historic 4-0 victory over the British Virgin Islands earlier that week. It was Cayman Islands who took the lead within the opening minute of the match, but head coach Scott Wiseman's players reacted well, with James Scanlon levelling the scoreline to make it 1-1 at half-time. A brilliant second 45 saw Dylan Borge put Gibraltar in front for the first time, with defender Julian Valerino making it 3. It was then captain TJ Debar who put the icing on the cake, getting the final goal of the match to seal a 4-1 win.
We know that people that have been saying it was just a one-off or it was a freak game or belittling the opponents that we played in the first game if we didn't back it up. So we knew that going into this game, the importance of it for our development as much as anything was of the utmost importance.
After 3 international games, there's still one more to go. The women's national side's maiden voyage in these FIFA World Cup qualifiers come to an end tomorrow night as they host Kosovo at the Europa Point Stadium. They made history in the 4-1 defeat away to Bulgaria on Friday when Joelle Gilbert scored Gibraltar's first goal in an official competition. Head coach Stella Gottel and her players will draw the curtain on a historic campaign tomorrow in front of the home crowd. Down the other end of the Rock, happening at the same time, Gibraltar women's national hockey side are in action against Morocco. The two sides will play 2 friendlies, one tomorrow and another on Wednesday, both happening at 7. These games are the start of Gibraltar's preparations ahead of Euro hockey action in Finland next month. Ringside Club boxers have enjoyed success over in England. Lilian Cornelio, Ewan Gracia and Julian Farr all made it to their respective Box Cup finals. Ewan and Julian won their bouts and will be bringing home the belts. Gibraltar's Angry Chill MMA made the trip to Belfast on the weekend for the Junior MMA League and came back with heads held high. Conor Doherty delivered a dominant unanimous decision win against a more experienced opponent. His brother Huey faced a fighter with a 28-0 record and showed real heart before being caught in an armbar. A tough draw, but a huge learning experience.
That's all from GBC News. We leave you with images of the Rock's first electric shuttle bus as it set off from Marketplace to the Upper Rock. From the news team, for now, it's good night.